Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy that you all could make it tonight. So I'm Florian Heinzelmann, Associate Professor here at NUS Department of Architecture. And I'm very happy that tonight we have Amata and Twitee from Department of Architecture, and that's the name of the company, by the way. So it's always like if you start Googling it, you will end up in a lot of different places, universities mostly. So it is part of this series of Daylight Talk by VELUX, and you can find then later the recording at the Daylight in Architecture website. So we are very happy that they also help us, showcasing talents. They will give a lecture tonight within this Daylight series, Crafting the Intangible, and they will show us their projects they realized in Thailand. And I was lucky to have seen a couple of them. So when we were there a couple of months ago, we could visit the Commons. It's a very amazing space, and I know it is part of this lecture series. Yeah, Department of Architecture, also a very famous office in Thailand, very well known, and also award-winning Architizer, American Master Prize, and so on and so forth. So very good practice, and I'm very honored that they are coming tonight and giving us a presentation. So yeah, welcome. And with this, I would like to, hand over the floor to you, please.
Okay, it's a great pleasure for us to be here today. Thank you, the National University of Singapore and the Daylight Talk series for having us today. It's our honor. Today we're going to share some thoughts on Daylight and also some of our works. Light in architecture, although intangible, has long been regarded as one of the fundamental and essential elements of architecture. Light reveals architecture, and architecture shapes light through its physical presence. Yet, however we try to shape and control it, light remains elusive, constantly shifting and transforming with the change of time of the cloud, the air, and the seasons. It escapes any attempts at permanence. It moves beyond our grasp, an ephemeral presence that defines and redefines the space it touches. Since I was a student, I have been inspired by so many remarkable works of architecture, from distant past to the present, that display the highest quality of light captured through architecture and how light engages with the space. But because our context is Thailand with our hot and humid climate, every time I was about to carve out an opening of the building, especially a skylight, I always have a bodily sensation of heat that comes with the sunlight. And it was frustrating that I could not bring myself to design this kind of spectacularly beautiful space flooded with light like those that I was inspired by. I came to realize that architecture as we know it is deeply rooted in the Western culture, emerging from a different climate context than ours. And much of the contemporary architecture we encounter in the media these days reflects designs shaped by cooler climates, where the alignment between environment and architecture manifests itself within the architecture. In our tropical climate, however, it's almost like we have to rethink it all over. How architecture engages with light that attune to a unique temperature, intensity, and rhythm that define this environment. It is almost as if we need to reset our frame of thought, and that was not easy to recenter. In my formative years, I came across the book Impress of Shadow, written by Japanese author Junichiro Tanizaki. The book examines the contrast between the Eastern and the Western sensibilities, particularly focusing on how Western culture tend to emphasize brightness and clarity, while Japanese culture finds beauty in subtlety and the interplay of light and shadow. Throughout the essay in the text reflects on various aspects of Japanese life, architecture, interior design, and art. It illustrates beautifully and poetically how shadows enhance the sensories of experience. It discusses on how traditional Japanese homes are designed with deep eaves and muted interior to create a serene atmosphere, allowing residents to appreciate the gradation of natural light. Through its text, for me, the book has opened up new perspective on light, revealing other possibilities to be realized, to be considered. Yet, in reflecting further, I realized that actually Japan is situated with the same climate zone with the West, suggesting that actually people's relationship with light is shaped not only by inherent climate conditions, but also by cultural influences. On the other hand, on the same beach in Thailand that we usually see tourists from the West seeking sunlight with warmth and sunbathing openly, while locals retreat into the shade seeking protection from the intense tropical sun. The essence of light is inseparable from temperature, altering spatial experiences, as light is not merely perceived through vision, but also through the body. Its intensity merging with the form and substance of architecture, creating a multisensory architectural experience. Throughout our practice, the relationship with light has been a continual process of exploration, negotiation, and refinement to balance between the visual and the corporeal, between the experience of sight and the felt presence of light on the space and the body. In today's conversation, we will discuss some of our projects and explore the intangible aspects of architecture. Not only light, but also elements such as shadows, air, temperature, human activities, and ideas that intertwine the tangible materials like concrete, brick, steel, wood, or glass, together with the intangible. And together, the tangible and the intangible shape the architecture that is both seen and felt.
All right, let's start with the Commons Thonglor. The Commons Thonglor is a small lifestyle development which most tenants are food and beverage. In Bangkok, we lack of open air space that work well with our tropical hot and humid climate. For quite a long while, we got used to living in an enclosed air-conditioned space. We want to create a new kind of gathering space for Bangkok to carve out this little open-air communal space out of this dense urban mass. And that is the site. There are lots of green spaces, but most of them belong to private. Very few belong to public. There are many challenges for us to design this project. The first challenge of multi-story commercial building is how to flow the customer up. Normally, shops on ground floor work much better than those on the upper floor. We provide a large staircase to draw people up from the ground. The stair is as wide as 2/3 of the frontage. Then, we fold down half of the stair to get customer into the back of the ground floor area. This main open air space was called the common ground. On this floor, we place small retail pavilions scattered throughout the space. Then we add seating and planting to make the customer feel leisure walking up. Large voids on second floor maximize visual connection. Customer arriving the property from the road will immediately see shops on the upper floor. On the third floor, there are also large voids. Customers can see and be seen from all levels. Then the roof. A large skylight in the middle brings light into the open air space. Now, the biggest challenge is how we make this open air space work well in our hot and humid climate. Beneath the skylight is a screen that diffuses strong sunlight to more comfortable light ambient. We provide 2 sets of industrial fans incorporated in the screen. One set draw hot air out, another blow air down to create air movement for customers' comfort. This common ground is so open that allows ventilation to come in from all sides. Or even from higher levels, wind come down through the large void on the floors. The upper floor structure floats above the common ground and acts as a big umbrella that provides shading for almost entire area and protect the common ground space from the rain. The gesture of the architecture is welcoming. It widely opens up to the neighborhood. The project attempts to carve out an open-air public living space, folding upward as a backbone of the building within such limited footprint. In this common ground, the customers can leisurely sit on the chairs, benches, steps, or lying on the floor mat. This common ground becomes a place that grandparents stop by in the morning for a cup of coffee. Office workers come for quick lunch. Housewives bring their kids to play after school in the afternoon. Expat and young Thai enjoy dinner and hang out together at night. The challenge now is how to provide such a large proportion of construction area as open-air common area and make the concept work financially. Let's see if in normal community mall cases, for the ground floor area that we have, we might be able to put in 7 normal-sized restaurants, in which 1/3 is their kitchen. We propose that each shop only take half the usual size, just enough for their kitchen and a few stools. So now we can get twice number of the restaurants. All of their customers can dine together in a common area, in a small air-conditioned space, or on an expanded open area of the common ground. We convinced the owner that this is actually a win-win-win situation. The first win is for us, the architect, that we could get impactful size of open air space. The second win is for the project owner, that they invest much less for their construction costs and a lot less building operating expenses, since a large portion of the building have no air condition. And the last win is for the tenants themselves, since their expense for starting up a shop is only for the kitchen. Seating areas are provided by the property. This scenario attracts newcomers who don't have big investments like those restaurant chains. That is why there are lots of new and interesting small restaurants there, not repetitive like chain restaurants in the shopping malls. Architecture of this private property is now become a common space for community. By saying architecture, I mean architecture, not architect. As these kinds of effort, it doesn't take an architect alone to do it. It needs collaboration between the architect and the investor. In this project, the architect proposed the space that would conceptually work well in terms of architecture. But it is the investor who would have to be willing to sacrifice the expensive rental space in exchange for a communal public space. However, they have to work financially. The investor was willing to risk on a new typology we proposed. A commercial space that dedicated a large portion of a non-slumber area to be a communal space as had never been done before. They successfully convinced their tenants to pay much higher rent per square meter for slumber space that they have left. In the end, it is highly successful in the way that the private architecture can become a community space where people come to hang out and give high return to the business.
The next project that I'm going to show is a small pavilion called the Flow. It is a multi-purpose pavilion for a community near the beach. The site is on this empty concrete platform, and the client does not give us any project briefs. They wanted us to help propose a pavilion that will be useful, and the rest is up to us. We started but not by designing the physical building, but by designing the activities that could happen in the space first, the program that would best suit the site. Then we cut and fold the floor plate and allow the possibilities of those different usage to happen. The plan and the section are designed to open up for different possible activities, different ways that people can come and interact with one another, with the site, and with the architecture. And as the site is on this concrete platform with blazing sun, the architecture needs to become a shading device. We are not thinking about the roof as a traditional roof, but rather we look into nature for reference of an effective way of shading and cooling with a volume, and we see a volume of small elements of the leaves that the air can move through. It gives the shading and the air can move through, rather than a normal roof which would block the air from move and fly away upward. Hence the design of the shading start to be formed from the idea of the tree leaves. And we have designed layers of small elements that superimpose on one another, that it will help form the shading, and with also still allow some light that seep through into the space. And that's a study of the building. And we have studied the possible way of the small elements that we can fix it at different angles that would allow different level of sunlight or the light that come through. And we superimpose this onto the plan, on the floor plate of the plan, where people would sit, like the main space that people would sit would be around here, and that's the entrance. So we are able to open up the elements much more in the space that people are not like actually sitting, or on the edge, around the edge, where people are not there. So the usable space within the building kind of inform how we design the pattern or the rhythm of the roof itself. And we use 2 layers of the roof with the translucent roof on the top and the solid one on the bottom. And that's how it works out to become, and that's the area of the roof around the entrance into the floor plate. So it's more close-up details. The elements is sort of like tree leaves that would, giving the shade, allow a little bit of sunlight that come through, and also the heat that usually rise up will be able to escape the building. So this is the final design of the building, and the design of the floor plate itself has been like a folding plate that has been cut and lift up and raised in different angles to allow for different people position. They can lean back for a more relaxed posture, or more upright. And the terracing up of the floor would make people can be stacked upward, and they can take a look at the sea onward, and the different level can become like a performance space, a community meeting space, for example. And on the back side is a ground for the people can come to play football. So we allow the edge on the back side of the building so that people can sit on, and also in 2 layers, on the ground and on the top. So it's allow for different variation of usage of space, thus become the multipurpose. On this image, you see how the floor plate has been fold, and sometimes it's fold up and it's become the table, and fold down become the chair, and people can sit. And as you sit up high in the air, you need some footrest. So we designed a footrest for the people underneath the folding chair, And the footrest itself at the feet become the facade of the building. And looking from approaching the building from this the land side and approach into the building, entering the building, some detail that people can step on to go up the higher level. And there are also like a fixed table at the end, and the kids can come and do their homeworks here, etc. And even at the edge of the floor plate, also fall down and become the seating that people can sit down and looking at the sunset view in the sea. Another view to look at the floor plate that's become the chair and the table, the light.
Next is Little Shelter Hotel, a small hotel in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Chiang Mai was once the capital of Lanna, the historic kingdom of northern Thailand, established several hundred years ago. It's renowned for its beautiful old temple, crafted wooden house, and unique vernacular structure, all reflecting the impeccable craftsmanship of northern Thai artisans. Chiang Mai is also celebrated for its exceptional handicrafts, from wood carving and silverware to silk and paper umbrella of Bo Sang village. I would say craft is truly the spirit of northern Thai culture. So it was our intention to embody the sense of craft into the architecture. The plot is very small, only 500 square meters on the beach, on the beautiful pink riverbank. With the required setback from the law, it leaves us this footprint. With maximum height allowed by the law, we get this volume. The roof form is asymmetrical hip pitch. Then we open up one side of the hip roof to the river, so the roof deck will get a beautiful panoramic river view. We decided to clad the 3 sides of the roof and 2 side wall with wood shingle. The material traditionally used in traditional northern Thai houses. For the facade facing river view, we punched a square void for each room terrace. We explore using new material installed in the traditional technique of shingle. The new material is polycarbonate sheet, cut into shingles with 2 levels of translucency. The mock-up reveals an interesting blurring effect. Since the material is transparent, we explore new detailing to make the support structure as invisible as possible. We use U-shaped polycarbonate caps as horizontal supports, secured with clear acrylic screws. The mock-up on site confirmed the intended translucent and refined finish. On the entrance facade, the upper portion of the facade is made of solid wood shingles, gradually transitioning and mixing with translucent polycarbonate shingles in the middle and lower parts. These translucent facades subtly reveal the movement and flow of the architectural space behind. As sunlight touched the varied texture, the facade glittered, with each material catching the light in unique ways. From the solid wood shingles to the different translucency levels of the polycarbonate shingles. Uninterrupted sheer polycarbonate shingle facade surface is achieved by a special detail design using translucent stud and special transparent screw. Riverside facade shows square voids at each of the guest room balcony. It subtly brings out different color from the guest room. On the right, a step-down day bed along the riverfront lets our guests to be closer to the river. The wall appears as a weightless, translucent skin without any interruption. Sunlight filters through the facade, casting a shifting ambience within the lobby atrium throughout the day. At the entrance, a combined hotel reception, cafe, and a bar warmly welcome our guests. In the lobby atrium, we chose to enhance its verticality with a site-specific installation. Here, we like to give a new life of the local handicraft of Bo Sang umbrella. which seem to be considered obsolete nowadays. Even though the umbrellas had been made by villagers for 100 years, they are now only sold mainly as cheap souvenirs. We designed a 10-meter high site-specific installation made of hundreds of umbrella frames from Bo Sang village. We play with the different opening angles of the frames. We and the local artisans had a great time exploring the installation detail together. They were fascinated to see their simple product used in a new way, transforming it into an art installation. With umbrella colors transitioning from wood tones at the top to white at the bottom, complementing the facade gradient. The umbrella installation seamlessly integrates with the architecture, reinforcing the dialogue of reinterpreting tradition into a contemporary language. The facade brings in soft, diffuse light, becoming a glowing backdrop for the installation. The stark white space has a gallery-like quality, presenting the site-specific installation as an art piece rather than mere decoration. As daylight shifts, the atmosphere in the gallery atrium transforms subtly, responding to the change in sunlight and the colors of the sky, adding a dynamic quality to the space. Little Shelter is our contemporary interpretation of Northern Thai architecture, particularly on creating a dialogue between the old and the new. Structure seems less of a building, but become more like a piece of craft work, a contemporary craft architecture we are aiming for. It is a representation of the past, the present, and probably the future of Chiang Mai to its visitor.
Thailand Creative and Design Center, or TCDC, is a government agency with a mission to inspire creative thinking in the society and to drive the country's creative economy. TCDC is an organization that provides a broad range of resources and services, ranges from a design library, a material library, a creative co-working space, a maker space, a design business consultancy, organizing exhibitions and various design lectures, workshops, and events. TCDC has now moved into this new home in a portion of this historical building. The design has to respond to the historical context in a way that it would have a new dialogue with the existing building. But most importantly, in this project, the task of the architecture is to provide an answer on how to make the space or the place to become the country's creative incubator. How can an architecture become a tool to create changes in the society? How to help propel the country's economy forward through the architecture itself. In our design, we think that the creative space is not creative because of how it looks, but it is a place that is designed to become an agent that can activate creativity and be a platform for inspiration. The architecture is thought of as a platform rather than a thing in itself. It is a place for people to come, to be inspired, to look for knowledge, to study, to experiment and explore. And it is to be a device that TCDC as an organization can use to stage various design events, from casual talk to workshop, gathering events to large and small exhibitions. The free flow open workspace is planned to spread throughout the building, mixing with other programming so actions can happen everywhere and to cultivate the exchange of ideas and conversations. A reading space might be mixing with a cafe. A material sample library can mix with a workspace. A workspace in an experimental workshop, which is a maker space, can also mix with an exhibition display that is produced in the space. Creative space is about creating a space where people can connect and being inspired by each other. Portion of the library is designed to encourage conversation rather than to be a conservative, muted library space. and in some part it's more like a cafe setting. Sometimes creativities need a space for contemplation, a little more private, pocket spaces. So we design a different variation of the way that people would have to use the space for their creativity thinking. The key area on the top floor, serving as the central space of the complex, is highlighted with daylight. To achieve this, the design must carefully minimize the heat gain. Above the plane of the diffuse light, we design a north-facing sawtooth roof to prevent direct sunlight from entering the space, only the bouncing light that would enter. We study the size and proportion of the glass opening through physical models to ensure just the right balance of light, avoiding excessive illumination and heat. Additionally, a high volume above the luminous plane, which is that. We have designed it to be a very high volume to block the warmer air near the roof from entering the occupied space. And finally, we verify the daylight level with the simulation software to ensure that the suitable lux level is suitable for reading conditions throughout the day and across the seasons. To create a space open to the exchange of ideas, we need a central core with enough large scale to invite people to gather together and inspire and to be inspired. Now let's take a look a little bit on the existing condition of the space that we have. Unfortunately, TCDC rental space that they have got was scattered in this existing building separately. That's where they have got the rental space. And worse, the larger space that is large enough for a larger gathering of the main space is in the back, which has no access from the entrance in the front. And still, there is still no large enough space for the kind of place that we have imagined for, like a gathering space that people can come together. So we propose to make an addition on the roof to create a new space that becomes the main central space of the design center on the top floor. And we're going to show you the cut through this section in the middle of the building. As you can see that the rental space is also scattering throughout the building. So what we have done is to make the new space to connect the front and the back wing, and the main vertical circulation is inserted to connect all the floors together. This inserted vertical circulation cut through the building, along with opening up the large glass plane on each floor and circulate visitors throughout the building, connecting them to the various activities occurring across the building that would otherwise remain hidden. A look back to the escalator through the translucent wall. From the escalator looking on the other way, the volume of light that filled the main space beyond filters softly through the translucent wall. The section. We believe that, and that's like the main, that's the main part, the main gathering space of the building. We believe that a creative space is not about an architecture that tries to look creative, which in a few years its freshness would have been worn out, but instead, we created an architectural system as a container of various sources of inspiration to surround you with things ranging from books, magazines, digital media, material samples to exhibition, etc. And that's like an X-ray view through the building. The system is created and inserted into the shell of the old building and make it wrap around various workspaces, constantly immersing people with inspiration that the system is holding. We planted exhibition spaces throughout the entire building, from exhibition rooms to small exhibition corners, pockets, and display shelves. You will always be surrounded by fresh ideas everywhere, every time you come here. Whether you're in a co-working space, a library, a workshop, cafe, or even when walking by a corridor. Integrating adaptable exhibition nodes throughout the space allow the space to evolve over time, transforming the architecture into a platform for inspiration. The new architectural system that is inserted into the old, and it is offsetting from the shell of the existing, revealing, not obscuring, the historical shell. It becomes a dialogue between the old and the new. Or sometimes the new system is created as an object situated within the old, exposing the entirety of the existing structure. The system that becomes an exhibition corner, a showcase space, an arrival hall itself inserting within the existing, exposing the existing to have the dialogue between the old and the new. The bookshelves, or even the whole system become a volume of book stacks that you could walk into. The translucent material, which is the main material, is studied during the design process to understand its subtle quality of how it interacts with light. The creative space is to be open-ended in terms of the design, yet be powerful to inspire. It is available for everyone in its hope to cultivate creative citizens and advance the country's aspiring creative economy.
Church of Joy. Church of Joy is a Protestant church located in Bangkok. This project holds special meaning for me personally. I was baptized at this church 2 years ago. And as a new believer, the journey has been both deeply personal and inspiring. For me, this is more than a design project. It's an interpretation of scripture through architecture. The Church of Joy represents my newfound faith, realized through a fusion of geometry, material, and light. The church located at the street corner within a quiet residential neighborhood. The front facade faces east to capture the morning light, aligning with the church's morning service schedule. The project began as a design-build effort by a church member's construction company. They completed the basic structure, but the design, particularly for the facade, was left unfinished. We were brought in to design the true street-facing elevation and the cross on the facade. Though our role was limited, it was meaningful and impactful. The morning sunlight became a key element. As churchgoers arrive, they are welcomed by the facade illuminated by the first light of the day. Our scope extends to the interior congregation hall, a double height space on the 3rd and 4th floor. We allowed light only through a single tall opening, backlighting the interior cross located at the corner of the stage. Let's begin with the facade design. What happened? But that's all right. With minimal opening needed. That is not Thai language. With minimal opening needed, the facade remains mostly solid, becoming a three-dimensional canvas. Here, we were inspired by the biblical curtain. In the Old Testament, a sacred curtain separated the holy from the people. In the New Testament, it was torn down, symbolizing unity between God and human. The facade is envisioned in white, acting as a subtle backdrop for the cross. Designed using a precast system, it began flat at the top and became increasingly pleated toward the base. The design relied on precise molding and installation, ensuring seamless alignment. These curtain-like pleats create a delicate setting for the cross. The pleat interact with the morning light, casting intricate shadow, while vertical slots serve as opening to the classroom behind. In overcast light, the cross is intentionally subtle, almost barely visible. Now, let's take a look at the cross on the facade, the Covenant cross. We designed the cross with vertical fins that vary in depth, subtly suggesting Jesus' silhouette. We designed the cross with to reflect the joyful spirit of the Church of Joy. We drew inspiration from Genesis 9:16. Whenever the rainbow appears in the cloud, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures. We chose acrylic material that reflect a rainbow of color, mirroring this covenant. Though colorless itself, the material reveals shifting hues based on light condition and viewing angle. Our mock-up confirmed the effect, casting vibrant shadows as sunlight interacts with the cross. The cross was fabricated in 5 parts and installed on the facade within 3 hours. Its color shifts with light and atmosphere. On overcast day, the cross reveals soft, muted hue, while in sunlight it radiant more vivid color. From a distance, it stands out as a vibrant landmark in the understated neighborhood. The fin depths create a faint silhouette of Jesus. The pleated surface enhances this interplay of color. We collaborate closely with our lighting designer to create an engaging visual experience at night. Using only colorless light, we rely on the acrylic material to create a striking colorful effect. The lighting includes multiple scenes. In its simplest form, backlighting illuminated the cross entirely, while the spotlight radiates beams from the center. Together, these 2 lighting sources transform the cross into a glowing lantern and brighten up the neighborhood. In Thailand, a predominantly Buddhist country, this vibrant cross gently introduced the church, invite curiosity, especially among younger generations, to explore the message of faith in a welcoming way. Our scope also includes the congregation hall and an interior cross installation. Unlike a traditional cross, our design features arms that gently curve inward, creating an embracing gesture. This 4-meter-high cross is suspended from the ceiling, appearing to float and with open arms. Inspired by the parable of the prodigal son, the cross symbolizes the father's embrace of the lost son, representing God's unwavering love and forgiveness. Made of hundreds of prisms, some with acrylic properties, the cross reflects soft, rainbow-like hues around the space. Its light, transparent quality gives it an airy presence, almost as it is floating upward. At night, spotlight casts colorful spectrum onto the surrounding walls. Backlit by sunlight from the vertical slot on the facade, the embracing cross appeared to dissolve as symbolic of God's presence that felt beyond physical sight. While I was inspired by the prodigal son for the cross, some see a dove, symbolizing the Holy Spirit at Jesus' baptism. The inward curving arms convey God's unconditional welcome. The congregation hall straw fiber wall were chosen not only for acoustic, but also as a nod to Jesus' humble birth in a manger. To further enhance acoustic, fire-retardant fabric strip ripple across the ceiling in soft wave radiating from the cross. The cross-concave arms channel light almost like concave lens to create a powerful focal point in the hall. Radiant and luminous, the cross shines through the dark, embodying the divine light. The Church of Joy is an architectural hymn, seamlessly blending the sacred with architecture and art installation, revealing its essence in every shadow, every color, and every beam of light that graces its space.
The final project that we are going to talk about today is Sala Bang Pa In, which is a resort situated in a rural landscape, surrounded by water on two sides. The location of the resort is quite unusual in that it is not in a travel spot or anything, unlike most other hotels or resorts. It is located in the middle of nowhere in a way. The surrounding is quite rural with community settlement. The project is about how we can become part of this landscape. It is about contemporary reinterpretation of the local rural landscape and to connect the guests to the life of the river and its atmosphere. The project has absorbed the sense of local craftsmanship into the spirit of a place. The design and materials are inspired by these wicker works and various crafts and reinterpreted into the modern architecture, which is, we have been designing almost all of the furniture in the interior as well. Brick, which is one of the dominating materials in the area, is reintroduced into the project as a whitewash. The lobby and the bridges are red in the same way that actually the vernacular buildings are very colorful. The architecture on stilts that were raised from the floodplain in the same way as the wisdom of the past is also utilized. Living among nature and overlooking to the river view and trying to push people out of their air-conditioned box into the nature. The architecture respectfully reflects the roofline and scale of the surrounding community houses. The craftsmanship atmosphere inside, which in this project we designed both the architecture, interior design, and landscape. We designed the main living space of each villa to be suspended in between nature. The front side fully opens up to the river view, while the back open up to a tiny little courtyard for natural light. So in certain places, we poured a small amount of filtered natural light in to touch and heighten the effect of the white texture brick surface. The light itself becomes the intangible material of the wall. The landscape of the project. The image on the right is a restaurant. The space of the restaurant is terracing from below the pavilion and terracing down outside and connect to the riverfront. As the river view is unfortunately on the west side, facing the west, the use of the space has to be negotiated with light and the shade. The planning and placement of trees and seating and the building has to be strategically worked out. We study the sun movement and design a dynamic, usable space beneath the shade that it has to continuously changing according to the movement of the sun throughout the day. Of where one would be seated for breakfast, for lunch, or for the sunset time and dinner. So we place different seating spaces according to the shading and the trees that we design. The restaurant building is a total open air space without an air condition. So we always try to reduce the use of air condition in the architecture. But in this building, we have challenged ourselves to experiment on creating a space filled with beautiful soft diffuse top light, which not normally found in the tropical climate. It is quite a challenge in this kind of climate of how to do it right. We designed it with a really large roof volume. The building height rises into almost 10 meters, so that the volume of the roof itself is really large, so that the hot air would rise above the usable space into that big volume. And on the edge of the roof, we provide an air gap so that the hot air that rising up can escape out, but at the same time the rain should not come in. In the end, the rare soft diffuse light quality in the tropical climate is achieved. With comfortable temperature levels similar to other normal solid roof pavilion. Comparable is, so it has now already passed the test of a few summers already and proved to be fine. In closing, our conversation today has centered on how architecture goes beyond what is seen, encompassing other dimensions of architectural experience. The perception of light in architecture is deeply intertwined with the bodily experience, inseparable in the way it shapes our engagement with space. In a hot, humid climate, this relationship requires constant negotiation and a careful balance. Our works continue to explore this ongoing dialogue between the tangible and the intangible, not only with light, but also through the many non-visual layers of architecture that intertwine with the physical substance to create a meaningful architecture. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were talking about the materiality, the geometry, and then the interaction with light and other atmospheric elements and conditions. But I also saw that you use, let's say, daylight simulations in a way. So maybe this is something interesting for the students, to know, because you have the model making experiment, you have the one-to-one experiment with the material. So it's not an abstract thing, right? So maybe you talk a bit how much experiment goes into before we see this very nice projects, because students building models and they're also testing things out, but it's just very interesting to see that this also happens on an architectural professional level, that you're still so much engaged with model making and the physical and all these tools together in order to achieve a quite poetic result, whereas there is also some quantitative aspect to it.
Thank you. I think we in the design process we have used so many different tools depending on each tool serves on each tool has a strength for different aspects of architectures. Like when we designed TCDC, that skylight, actually first we model it in the computer and try to throw the light in, and we know that it's not real, it cannot be real. And then actually we work with the lighting designer to come up with that lighting simulation of how natural light would interact with that roof. And actually we are not, we know how many lux it is, but we don't know how it feels. And actually because our eyes adjust to the different, a wide range of lights, like 2000 lux and 1000 lux is like the eyes adjusting. So in the end we were so curious, like what is actually what it is actually is, and in the end, we have to make a physical model, which we find that to understand the natural light, to make the model, the physical model, is probably the best way to actually see how it interacts with the space. And this day that we have been using a lot of computer tools, I think it's it make it quick in some aspect, but in some aspect it's slow. Like when you design and think of the initial ideas, we find that younger generation, someone like to come in and use the AutoCAD to lay out what they think, but it's not like immediately connecting to what you are thinking, and it's almost, when you have it, it's almost fixed and it's hard to change. But whereas the sketching is quicker. But then when you develop more the project, using computer is faster, because if you want to change a little bit, you don't have to like erase the whole thing or redo the drawing. Or also the computer modeling also, it quickly helps us to see the space quickly, but certain aspect of it we don't get, like the lighting, the actual light, and also the perhaps sort of the scale of the relationship of everything that are related together at one fixed scale that we can see, which gives the different information than looking at the modeling in the computer, that you change scale, you fly, you float, and everything. So we use a mix of tools to understand totally what we are doing.
Okay, I may add a few words. Making physical model is really essential, especially if you are working with not so conventional material. Even though like translucent material is for us is simple, but the 3D modeling cannot like portray its effect like beautifully. And don't talk about like dichroic kind of material. There is no 3D modeling that can portray that. So when we start doing the design and using Bentley with 3D modeling, we can learn only the scale of the space, but we don't really understand the effect. So physical model come in as an essential tool. Another point that I might like to add, Twitee just mentioned a bit that students or young generations, they might like lost into the program, and that happened a lot. Like I just experienced my staff, like he lost in grasshopper, like trying to fix things and lost in that like for 10 days. And then when I look at it, no, you must throw that away and then start from fresh, and then he can finish it within like 4 hours. So it's this kind of a program help us to do some delicate thing, complex thing, but at the same time you have to be really careful because it's a trap.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. Anybody here having a question or a comment?
I wonder if you could reflect a little bit on your kind of path, because you went from Thailand to be educated in the temperate and returned to the tropics. And if I could just comment, and I just see it through many of the projects, an interest in translucency. There's a kind of whiteness in many of the projects, and a kind of diffuse quality of the light, which often we don't see in architecture in this part of the world, though the sun is often very diffuse here. So I was wondering if there's some kind of resonance in the way that you see daylight and the way that it occurs in this part of the world that might be different than the way you were educated, and is there a kind of thinking about that?
I think it's when we're studying in the US, all the examples are from the temperate climate, and all the architecture, I felt that all the architecture like to receive the sun, it's short eaves and the sun come in, and that's a good thing. And it's really difficult to think about what should I do when I come back. But in a way, I found that those things that we have learned, we have seen, the projects that we have learned or looked at are so wonderful, and we want to be cool like that, but we cannot do it. It was quite frustrating. And at the time, I think in this part of the world, we have example that a good example that is like suitable for the tropical climate as we have, but it's sort of like a tension that I was like, I want to be how to be contemporary at the same time answer to the climate. So it's almost like we have to slowly try to unlearn and rethink of what kind of, the architecture that would manifest itself through this kind of architecture, and how to bring it not like using too much of the reference in the past and stick with the history. I think the history is a good thing, but how to also move forward with the contemporary world and going into the future. And that's, I think, all along the career, it's sort of this experiment of how that could be done. For example, that the restaurant pavilion, that somehow I always feel intrigued with this diffuse light and translucency, and like something that you can see and almost not see, something like that. But how to make it work within our climate, and those are kind of one of the experimentation that we are experiment and try to work on.
I have to admit that whiteness or translucency material, those came from the West, and I'm not shy to say that we use those as a vocabulary, but not as a language. So we can write our own story with that vocabulary, and how we come up with that story, actually we born in it. We born in it, and we stay with it. We intuitively know that with this tropical climate, it have to be breezy. It have to be open up to invite for the breeze or something. But in what kind of vocabulary? Sometimes we use like old vocabulary, as you may have seen. But we are quite proud that we accept new vocabulary as well.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So fascinating work, and your exploration towards the zenithal light in the tropics. I was very curious about, because I visited Singapore a few times, and I find this restaurant space you've created so beautiful, so just a right amount of finesse. And I was wondering, what was your target illuminance level for that space, and what is the actual amount of light that's into that space today, now that it's realized?
Actually, on that project, we haven't do the digital simulation, but we tested with the actual models and put it up in the real sunlight and see how that is, using the actual material, and to see how it interact with the light, and also with the model, which we use maybe a different type of translucent material to test on the first round.
Would the spatial quality be different if they are in black? Second, I enjoy the Church of Joy. The back is And I think what will happen to the cross if it's on a black background? I like the cross a lot because it reminds me of Genesis. Let there be light and there's light. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, you just answered the question yourself, right? If it's in black, in terms of aesthetic, it's black still catch shadow that come in color, yes. But in terms of feeling, in terms of meaning, it would be interesting and challenging to convince everyone that the church will be in black. Why Jesus float in the black background? That seemed not like Jesus. It seemed to be Lucifer. But for other kind of other project, actually we have done some space in dark gray, and in some restaurant we did it in black. Yes. Actually, the project that we present this morning, it was in black. We have nothing against black at all. We love black, but for the church, it would be questionable if the church is in black. At least for that setting. Thank you.
Because of contextual reasons?
Yes, in Thailand, in Asian country, you will black as a saddest thing on the earth, or very like unholy or something. But if it's something else, we would love. My bedroom is in black, so I don't have anything against black at all.
About a week ago, a client showed me an image of the Commons and said, I love the way that central space works. Can you design something like that? Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to fess up to plagiarizing you, which I won't do. But I'm interested in the ripple effect that the Commons created in that complete innovation in the public-private balance, in the fact that sometimes monetizing every square foot of space directly through rentals is not yielding community value. So I'm interested to hear if it caused ripple effects in your own portfolio or buildings that may have shown up around Bangkok over the past couple of years that are thinking the same way.
Thank you very much for the question. It has like big wave. After the first common finish, we got contact from I think almost all the country around Southeast Asia and beyond, asking us to do something similar. And of course we won't do anything similar to our own past work, definitely. But when we talk with them, we agree to work on some of the proposal. Actually, we just finished one project in Manila called the Corner House. The outcome is not the same, but the core that we want people to be in a non-air conditioned space as the main space, that still remains, because we believe that it worked for Bangkok, so it should work in Manila, and it should work in Singapore, in Kuala Lumpur, definitely, if you do it right. And we have seen many works from other designers that have like big steps kind of thing, and it's always pleased me so much to see that it has a rippling effect. But the bad thing is that now when people come to us, they always ask for, where's the big step? Where's the big step? Big step is not the only way to do like public communal space. There will be many other direction. But a client always asks, where's the big step? Where's the big step?
If I may, with a follow-up question, and a lot of times it's really difficult sometimes to argue for value because people talk a lot about cost. And this will be a very boring and dry question, and if the answer is no, shut me down quickly. But have there been any studies done on the financial viability
of actually dedicating more space that is non-quantifiable for in yielding direct rental, but somehow demonstrating, because Singapore dollars and cents are very precious, and every square inch of GFA is very precious. So people always ask me, they come to me and ask me, oh, you want to do all this outdoor space that I cannot charge my tenants for, and you're promising me that somehow it'll deliver better rentals or better attraction or better, like, have there any studies been done on the Commons?
We did that study ourselves. When we present the Commons Thonglor, the first common, and we know that the amount of open air space need to be this size. Otherwise, it will be perceived as a corridor or like circulation. It won't work. It have to be like this size. So in shopping malls development, they always ask for 60 to 70% sellable space, in which they always charge by rent by per square meter. So we counter back to them that no. You should not only do that. The way that you can get money, the same amount of money, but with our direction is that you charge by percentage of the income from the tenants. So when the tenants like sell a lot, you get like certain percentage of them, no matter how small that shop is. That drive the developer and us to make them as small as possible, just enough for them to prepare food. And then we can put lots of them, like twice as much. And then we charge by percentage of the income. And the result is fantastic. The common, the first common have already like break even like many years ago. And 4 years after the first common complete, we did the second common. But today we don't have that much time, so we only present one. So financially, it worked really well if you can charge by percentage of the percentage from the income, not per square meter.
Maybe architects should charge fees this way.
I just want to follow up, just because we're talking about that project. It seems like a pedantic, kind of simple question, but I mean, when you have those large overhangs in that large outdoor spaces, is there rain protection? What happens when the monsoon blows through? Is a certain percentage of it not usable again? Or, I mean, how do you manage that? I'm just curious.
All right. If we are talking about the commons, the direction that the building open up is not the direction of the wind. It's not the direction of the rain. And I haven't shown the context of the project. There are like a tall building on the side. And in Thailand, our rain is not that strong. Of course, in the heavy rain, probably like 1/3 of the common ground cannot be used because it's wet, but that's fine. We still have 2/3, so people just move in. Yeah. But this will be different if it's done in different countries. Like the project that we done in Manila, their rain is not just strong rain. It's monsoon, so the rain come like horizontally. So in that project, our building has a breathable skin, so it can be all open up, inviting all the ventilation, but it can be either like fall down, like roll down, or the lower like close up to contain the non-air conditioned space. So it's depending on each country, but I think it would work if you understand the climate condition in that particular setting, like in details, and you can find architectural tools, some tools to solve that.
So I think we slowly should round it up, but what I think, sort of as a final statement, you started with, as I said, the Northern Hemisphere or the global North as these architectural projects you were aspiring to. But what I find intriguing is like the North is also like very often this either or condition, right? Sort of like being this side, that side, right? And it's lacking this in between in a way. And you know, you mentioned Japan and religion, spirituality plays a bit of a role. What I find intriguing when you showed the Japanese example, you know, for there you can be Shintoist and Buddhist and whatever. There's conditions existing next to each other. And looking now at your architecture in a way, it has this layering in a way, programmatic layering, climatic layering, but also like the physical layering, right? So it is sort of several conditions which merge and blur and transist, go from one to the other. It's not like sort of the outdoor or the indoor condition. It's like a lot of different conditions where you also, let's say, move around and adjust yourself more freely and more flexibly, right? And maybe this is how your architecture sort of is very much different in its own interpretation with its own culture. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 final sentences.
Yes, when we were working in our condition, we try to respond to the context, to the climate and the program, everything. And actually, it's not in the beginning. It's not intentional that we are going to make a tropical architecture, but with all the condition and trying to make things work, it's sort of coming that way naturally without having to intend to do it. If we answer it right, all the condition, it starts to form the way that we design the architecture.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a great honor, great pleasure that you have been here. So yeah, with this we close it, and a nice applause for Twitee and Amata.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And